Hi guys, Nadine here. Sorry I'm late. Uh, One of those days, I guess. So I am going to be working on my website today. I need to get this done. So what I wanted to do was still play the book. So yeah, let's play the book and get my website done, or at least part of it. Um, trying to get trying to get the formatting and a couple of templates done up for different things. Um, this one here is a template for my Creations by Nadine, for the crochet part of the blog. This is just a blank template, so that I just you just kind of fill in the blanks once you're done. So I've got my um, part of my ninja socks pattern here. I still need to finish typing it out. But instead of having it kind of like this, it'll end up being formatted and end up looking like this instead. So this is kind of what it looks like so far. So then when I go in and actually try and do a new post, it'll look like this. And this is the HTML look of it. So, hey Mace, I'm glad you could drop by anyway. I'm kind of late on this starting up, so I was just gonna work on my website and get the code and stuff figured out for it and get a template done up. So, how are you doing? Is somebody else streaming right now? I don't even know what's going on. I kind of got busy. Well, distracted. You know how it goes. I'm like I suppose a bit of a, not too bad. I am, I'm just, had so much trouble with my camera lately that I'm like, screw it, I'm gonna do up my programming that I was working on before I started, and I'm just gonna keep on going with that instead while we listen, because I'm still doing something that's my craft related, and I think it all ties in together anyway. So yeah, so that's what I'm doing. I'm just kind of, and actually I'm doing pretty good because I don't hurt today. Yay! My pain's at least manageable. I don't really hurt. There's always a little bit of an ache, but it's tolerable, and I don't feel too bad today. So, yay! Don't get old. It's a bad idea. I when I was 12, I said I would never grow old, and I should have said I would never get old, because I'm certainly not growing old, but certainly getting old. Yeah, it's always great when you don't have a painful day. I'm quite happy of it. So yeah, it's all good though. It's kind of the way life is, I suppose. You know, good days and bad days, but I'm thinking the weather's just kind of cooperating around here. Yeah, but we could pretend we're not already there. You know, let me have my little delusion that we're not already there. Oh, oh, there it is. I am and I do up these things. And I just finished this one not long ago. Pretty cool, huh? I need to do the other one though. It just buttons up. But I need to do up the other one. Hey Reese, how are you doing? I'm gonna be coding today and stuff. Did you? Awesome. Hi, honey. Just in case somebody already doesn't know, Josiah's going to visit me on the 7th of November. So, yeah, so yeah, but anyway, I'm gonna start off the book and get working on my website. And like I said, I did these. I'm gonna have to do up the pattern for it. And Reese, I'm working at getting a tutorial done because I'm having so much problems with Windows. I can't get stuff done that I need to get done to do the tutorial because it doesn't work in Linux. So I'm trying, and I will get it done sooner or later. It's just I gotta figure out how to make OBS work properly in Linux to get done what I need to get done. It's yeah, depends on your definition of a lot, I suppose. And it's actually, you can go anywhere else in Canada. Not quite that. But you can go anywhere else in Canada cheaper than you can to Newfoundland. It actually, inside of Canada, it costs only a little bit more to go to England than it does to go to Newfoundland, which is really weird because you have to go all the way across the ocean, but you know, whatever. And I don't think I don't know if Josiah is going to answer your Reese. He is watching a UFC match, I think, or something that happened yesterday. I think it's UFC, it's a fight or something. I went over to Brothers and watched it. I'm in a massage chair. Hi, Christy, honey. Yeah, I don't know what the match is that he's watching. What you watching, honey? Massage chair. So they're gonna. I suppose I should. Happy Sunday Fun Day. Happy Sunday Fun Day. Yay! We are. Oh, apparent. No, it's not too bad. And yes, anything for love. It's. And as a. As someone rather famous once said, I would do anything for love, but I won't do that. We're not sure what that is, but I won't do it. Sorry. I'm not getting my, maybe if I darkened my face a little. Ah, there, my head's not quite as see-through. Whatever. Meatloaf in it, yeah. um, So I'm gonna start the book up now. Hope you guys enjoy. It's the rest of the Venus Boy. I actually kind of like it. It's been kind of a fun little book. So and it's really funny how they thought back then when this book was written about the universe and about other planets, and it was quite it's quite the nice little thing. Like it's quite an interesting view. Okay, love you do. Bye. Have fun. Call me later. Yay. And but yeah, like it's quite the interesting little book, and I'd say to anybody who hasn't heard it from the beginning, go check it out from the beginning. There's the links in the description to the whole book. It's really kind of interesting. Um, Reese, I will play any book on here that is um, um, oh, public domain. That's the word. Why do I not? Why can I not? I will play any book on here that's public domain because then I won't get a copyright strike. People for some reason think that you need to be a big channel to get copyright strikes. No, you just need to do something that's you can get a copyright strike on anything. It's just if they're pissy enough about it. But I will play any book from LibriVox, that place. Um, just message me on Crisis by Nadine Twitter or my personal Twitter or just message me somewhere and tell me which, send a link to the book. Just copy the link off the top of the browser or share it or whatever. And I will play anything from there. And like I said, the reason for that is I don't want to get copyright strikes. But it's basically anything from 50 years ago or more. I can't quite remember. It says in here it says in LibriVox what the public domain sphere is in the States. I figured I'd go with that because I don't think ours is much different, and I haven't been able to find anything that says otherwise. Of course, if it is, I will fix it. But it's not there. Well, pick something anyway you would like to hear, because I'd play it for you. Like if you go into any of the books, you can if you go into any of the books, it'll tell you what the running time is. If it's like an hour to two, I'll do it in one shot. Or less if it's and if it's less, I usually will pick up a couple of them to do all at one shot. If it's more than 2 hours, it'll probably be broken up into 2 or more days. Like this one here was 5 days, I think, something like that. Anyway, so yeah, if you'd like to request a book, I'm always looking for requests. So yeah, it's either that or I'll start putting Shakespeare on. Ha ha ha. But I'm going to start her up now, so I hope you enjoy. I recommend, if you haven't heard it from the beginning, I recommend listening from the beginning. It is a pretty good book, and it's kind of funny how people thought back then. Okay, enjoy, and we'll talk to you on the other side.
And soft blue and delicate pinks made places to sit. The room was flooded with light that came from directly over their heads. The walls were made of the living wood of the tree, carved with many scenes of Venus and colored to make beautiful designs. Johnny looked up to see where the light came from. He gasped. Above them was a great cluster of marva teeth and claws glowing with light. When Keetack, the leader of the council, moved forward, the light floated along the ceiling, following him. Finally, Johnny realized what the light was. It was a cluster of large Venus fireflies. Each clasped a marva claw in its tiny feet. As the insect glowed, the claw multiplied the light. In the middle of the ceiling was a hive where the fireflies lived. Johnny watched with wonder as the flies went back and forth from hive to light. Keetack noticed Johnny's interest. "As one becomes tired," he said, "another takes his place. We give them food and they give us light. Is it not a good system?" Suddenly Johnny understood. "And the rhinosaurs protect you from the sea beasts. And we help them when they are sick or hurt. We help take care of their marshberries and see that they have food. All living things are our friends, but the killers of the sea." "Gee," said Johnny, "it's just perfect." The little bear appeared to laugh. "Hardly," he clicked. "We have our quarrels, too, and many of our friends sometimes forget." "That's right," Johnny said. "The monkeys sure didn't trust those leopards until after we got here." "It is hard for many of them," Keetack went on. "I often wonder what the rhinosaurs will do when there is nothing left to fight. We are already beginning to make friends with the killers of the sea. Not long ago the arrow birds were killers, and it was only in the lifetime of my great-grandfather's great-great-grandfather's father that we made friends with the river snakes, so that they too do as we advise them to do." "You mean obey you?" Johnny asked. "In a way," Keetack answered. "Most of the animals obey us, but they don't obey your little ones." Johnny was excited. "It's only when your blue teeth come in and your voice gets deeper that other animals will obey you. Isn't that right?" "Yes," said Keetack. "We say a deep voice is a sign of the coming of wisdom." "Then that's why the arrow birds obeyed Baba and me." "Yes," Keetack nodded. "Now would you like to see the remainder of our tree?" "Please," Johnny answered politely. "It's a lot like the caves of New Plymouth Rock." "Indeed so," said the marva leader. "These caves served as a yearly meeting place of the Council of all the groves. No one tree was large enough for all to live in while we talked together. Before your people came to the Green Lands, we had happy times there each year. Now we use the rock only for watching you." "I'm sorry," Johnny said. "Come now," Keetack clicked. "I will show you the tree." Johnny would have been terribly excited by the suggestion if it hadn't been for his fear that they were taking too much time. The whole upper part of the tree was honeycombed with rooms. Each level was connected by a winding passage as in the caverns of New Plymouth Rock. Each was lit in the same way. It was not Keetack's tree alone. Several marva families lived there together. As they entered each level, a marva would come forward and welcome Johnny. He was fascinated by the little ones, who grinned at him just as Baba did. The marva cubs always came in twos. Peeking around from the back of the mothers were always two pairs of bright blue eyes. But one family was different. Johnny and Keetack entered that level to the sound of growling and tumbling and scratching. In the middle of the room a small bear bounced hard on the floor, and up to the ceiling where it clung like a fly. Below it, a coal-black leopard cub growled in a way Johnny understood. It was a pleading growl saying, "Come." As soon as the baby bear, hanging on the ceiling, saw Johnny and Keetack, he dropped to the floor and stood with his arm around the black leopard cub. A mother marva came rushing from another room. "I'm sorry my cubs were so rude," she clicked, "but you know how much mischief one of ours and a friend pet brother can get into." "Of course," Keetack clicked. "This is the friend pet brother of one of ours, so he will understand." "Oh, yes," Johnny said. Then he looked over at the two cubs. The little marva was still very small and had black claws. "He shows off just like Baba used to," Johnny exclaimed. Johnny remembered the trouble his mother had had with Baba's game of walking on the ceiling. With that they went on, but Johnny touched Keetack on the shoulder. Though the bear was old, he came to no more than to Johnny's shoulder. "The leopard cub was that marva cub's friend pet brother, just as Baba is mine?" Johnny asked. For the first time the marva seemed to smile, opening his mouth wide as Baba did when he grinned. "We would say you were his friend pet brother," the black muzzled one clicked. "Perhaps it is better to say you are friend brothers. It is not strange. Many of us have had companions of another race." "Why is this?" Johnny asked eagerly. "You have seen that our cubs always come in pairs. The pair is almost one until they are grown," Keetack explained. "If only one cub is born, or one of a pair dies, we give the lone cub a friend pet, a cub of another race to grow up with him. They become brothers, just as you and Baba did. Without this, the lone cub would die. Cubs need the love of a brother as much as they need food. It is sometimes a very good thing, for in this way our friends of the plains and the groves are knitted to us with ties of very deep love." "Now I understand why Baba would never leave me," Johnny said, and then he went on earnestly. "And you should understand why I've got to get back to Baba in the colony. There may still be some way I can save him, but I don't have much more time." "I can make no promise yet to let you go," Keetack said. "Still, there may be a way we can save your friend brother and do something more besides." He would say no more. Soon they were back in Keetack's rooms. "You will wait here," Keetack said. Johnny seated himself on one of the piles of mats and waited. He didn't quite understand what was going on, but he wished Keetack would hurry. He looked at Rick's watch. It had been 12 hours since he had spoken to his father on Ed's radio telephone. He had only an Earth day and a half to get to the settlement if he were to keep Baba out of Ed's hands. A few minutes later, Keetack re-entered the room, surrounded by some of the furry bears who lived in his tree. "My friend," he clicked, "I have a gift from the people of my tree to your people, those whom you say are making a colony. It is a gift of friendship and a gift of peace. If the Council of the Grove decides to let you go back, I hope you can use these to pay for the life of your friend and brother Baba." In his hand the marva held a small package wrapped with woven rushes. "Thank you," Johnny said, and took the package. "You may unwrap it." Johnny folded back the stiff material and gasped. In his hand glowed a pile of marva claws, hundreds of them. End of chapter 15. Chapter 16 of Venus Boy. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Shasta, Oakland, California. Venus Boy by Lee Sutton. Chapter 16. The Thunder of Rhinosaur Hooves. A worried Johnny was standing in the center of the clearing once more, surrounded by the little jewel bears. He now knew this was the Grove Council, a group of the wisest bears of the grove. Keetak's gift to Johnny had impressed them all. They knew it meant that Keetak trusted Johnny. Yet they were cautious. Johnny's knowledge of them could be very dangerous. "It is not right he should go," one of the marva was saying. His muzzle was still blue, and Johnny knew this meant he was younger than the rest. "The young killer will return to his people and tell of our ways and our houses in the trees. Then the older killers will come with their death-spitting things, and our lives will be gone. I think that we should hold him here. Otherwise, we risk the lives of our people." Johnny put up his hand as if he were in school. The marva, Keetak of the deep black muzzle, pointed at Johnny. "May I talk now?" Johnny asked. The marva nodded. "I won't tell anything you don't want me to," he promised earnestly. "With these claws, I'm sure Baba can be saved, but I'm going to have to hurry. If the outlaws get him, they will kill him sure. Don't you understand?" "We understand," the old marva answered, "but we must be sure of safety for us and our people. Your people are killers like the beasts of the sea. You even kill each other. You are a strange people. Still, you risked your life for your friend Baba, just as Baba would risk his. Your friend with the red fur risked his life to help you. Do you really think that if your people knew all there is to know about us, they would not come with the fire-spitting things?" Johnny was silent. He knew Ed would come. He knew Trader Harkness would, too. He swallowed, for lying to these little bears was something he just couldn't do. "For those claws, some of my people would do anything," he clicked in a low voice. There was complete silence in the grove. The marva, who was young and still blue-furred about the muzzle, stood again. Johnny wanted to cry. He had condemned Baba to death, but if he hadn't done so, maybe all the marva would be killed. He felt they too were his brothers. He broke into sobs and stood there with tears running down his cheeks. "We have heard our young friend," the blue-furred marva said. It was the first time he had not called Johnny a killer. He gave us the truth because we have trusted him and treated him with friendship. I was wrong. He is to be trusted. Let him go from here with his gifts. My tree, too, will send a gift, but let him promise to keep secret anything he thinks may be dangerous to us." The marva seated himself. "Oh, I promise," Johnny said solemnly. "Cross my heart and hope to die." "It is agreed among us, then?" Keetack asked the group. The furry heads nodded their agreement. "Young friend, you may go. Your settlement is 3 groves away from us. You may have a rhinosaur to ride. It will take you home with time to spare. You go with a pledge of peace. We will send messages ahead and no animals will attack you, nor will any of our friends attack any man unless he attacks first. You may tell your people we will give them more claws for such things as we would like from them. Every 2 years we marva get a new set of claws and teeth. The old ones have been saved from generation to generation to be used for lights and for tools. You may also tell the leaders of your people we would like to meet with them. Perhaps we can make a friendship that will endure." Johnny had a busy hour ahead of him. First, he ran to see Rick among the sick animals in the other part of the grove. There was no question of Rick's coming with him. He was still too sick from the arrow bird's wound, but he was definitely on the mend. He was lying under a tree, petting the leopard cubs. Johnny told him what had happened, carefully omitting where the marva lived, and Rick became more and more interested. Finally, Johnny showed him one of the packets of claws that he had been given. By now the packets had grown to over a dozen, and he had placed them in a bag made from his shirt. "Johnny," Rick said, "you've done a most wonderful thing. Those marvas don't have to worry about being hunted anymore. If people can get so many of those claws and teeth, no one will ever want to hunt for them again. You tell them that for me." Johnny rushed to give the news to the marva. The first one he found was the young council member who had at first opposed letting him go. "It pays to trust one another," the marva said simply. Soon Johnny was ready. The leader of the council brought before him a huge rhinosaur, one of the biggest Johnny had ever seen. "Skorkin knows he must obey you," Keetack said. "He will do anything you ask and will harm none of your people." "Hello, friend pet," Johnny said. The rhinosaur turned and looked at him with his little blue-black eyes and grunted a greeting. Johnny noted it. It probably meant hello. "Was that his speech?" Johnny asked. "Yes," Keetack answered. "They have more words than the other creatures of the green lands. Only the monkeys of all our friend pets come near to being as smart as they. They are a people, too, of great courage." "I know," Johnny said. He remembered the rhinosaur charge at the colony. At the mention of the word monkey, the little red ape, whom Johnny had rescued from Ed, began to chatter and jump up and down. "He likes you and wishes to go with you," Keetack said. "Do you want him to?" "Oh, yes," Johnny answered. The monkey leaped to his shoulder. Johnny suddenly had an idea. Could the leopardess, her cubs, and the arrowbird come too? he asked. That is, if they want to. Keetack understood what was in Johnny's mind and nodded his approval. "It's a good idea," he clicked. "It would be a good way to prove to your people that the animals can be friendly." The leopardess was suddenly beside Johnny, rubbing up against him like a big cat. She looked up into his face and growled in the way that Johnny knew meant, "Come." Johnny looked at the wristwatch. "We do have to hurry." He threw the bagful of the precious claws over his shoulder and stepped toward the rhinosaur. "How'm I going to get on?" he asked with sudden surprise. A series of grunts came from the rhinosaur that sounded something like laughter. Then it lay its horned snout upon the ground and grunted again. "Climb on," Keetack said. Grasping one of the long snout horns, Johnny climbed aboard his strange mount. All around, hundreds of the marva were hanging from their trees. They waved and he waved back. "Let's go," he clicked to the rhinosaur. And so began the race through the jungle. The great rhinosaur moved forward with thundering speed, the leopardess and her cubs loping along beside them. When one of the cubs grew tired, it leaped on to the rhinosaur's back, curled up beside Johnny, and went peacefully to sleep. The arrowbird perched on one of the beast's horns and the monkey beside it. They did not stop for rain or rivers. Everywhere the jungle seemed to have blossomed forth with animals who waved and grunted, growled, clicked, or sang greetings to them as they went past. The broad back of the rhinosaur was a perfect place to travel, Johnny found. It swayed hardly as much as a helicopter and bounced much less than a tank. It was not long until Johnny had followed the leopard cub's example. He found a hollow in the big back, curled up and went to sleep, lulled by the steady swinging movement and the thunder of the rhinosaur's hooves. Johnny woke with a start. The monkey was pulling on one of his ears. They had reached the settlement. Johnny glanced down at his watch. He had slept 6 hours. The rhinosaur had stopped right at the edge of the meat tree grove that bordered the settlement. Through the screen of trees, Johnny could see the high gray walls. It was about half a mile to the gate. Johnny wiped the sleep out of his eyes and puzzled as to the best way of making his appearance. "Go that way," Johnny clicked and pointed, "but stay where you can't be seen from the walls." At a slow trot, the rhinosaur carried them to a place directly in front of the gate to the settlement wall. Johnny saw that the gate had been repaired. Beside it was a steel door through which a single man could be admitted. "You wait here for me," he said to the animals. "Let me down, friend rhinosaur." He tied his bag of claws to the rhinosaur's horn and then walked down the huge head to the ground. The arrowbird flew over and lit on his shoulder. It had not understood. "Wait," Johnny repeated. "Wait. I will come back." The rhinosaur wandered a few yards away and began to munch on some bushes. The leopard growled to her cubs and began to climb a meat tree in search of food. Johnny smiled. They were good friends to have. Johnny slipped through the bushes and trees until only one antelope berry bush was between him and the wall. The guard tower was directly in front of him. The men in the tower must have noticed the swaying of the bushes, for they were looking directly toward the spot where Johnny stood. Johnny slipped from behind the bush and stepped into full view. He smiled and waved jauntily to the guards. As casually as he could, he started toward the door. Halfway there, he began to skip for sheer joy. The guards were staring at him open-mouthed. Obviously, he had no armor on. He had had to use his shirt to make the bag for the claws. The only clothes he wore was the baggy pair of shorts Rick had made him. The steel door at the base of the guard tower opened at his touch. He closed it carefully, opened the inner door, and then climbed the stairs to the guard tower instead of going straight into the colony. There, too, were double doors. "Hello," he said as he entered. The three guards on duty were so surprised they couldn't speak for a second. One of them was old Jeb. Before they recovered, Johnny went up to Jeb. "Would you call my father, Jeb, and tell him to come to the gate?" It was funny to watch their faces. "Johnny, you're safe!" Jeb suddenly exploded. He swept the boy into his arms and swung him about. He stopped, pushed the boy away from him, and tousled his hair. "I can't believe it, but you're safe." "Sure am," Johnny said with a grin. Then he became serious. "How is Baba? Is he all right?" "He's been kind of sad and upset, poor little feller," Jeb said. "But how in thunder did you get here? Last we heard you were being held for ransom. Your folks have been worried sick." "Oh, I got away from the outlaws, and some friends brought me. Please call everybody in the colony, will you? Tell them to come to the gate. I have something important to show them. I've got to go back out to my friends now. Bye." He started toward the door. "Friends? What friends?" Jeb called. "You'll find out," Johnny said with a laugh. "Hey, you can't go outside without armor," one of the other guards shouted. But Johnny had slipped out before he could be stopped. He took the stairs at a run and was out of the heavy steel wall doors before the men could follow him. As he skipped across the open space back to the jungle, he turned his head, waved to the men in the tower, and smiled. "Come back here, you little devil!" Jeb shouted through the loudspeaker the guards used to guide tanks in. But Johnny shook his head and went back into the brush. Johnny waited for about 10 minutes. All this time, the loudspeaker in the tower was shouting for Johnny to come back in. Finally, the voice changed. It was Johnny's father's voice. "Johnny," his father said over the speaker, "come on in here, please. I'm here now, Johnny." Johnny heard a tank starting up inside. He didn't want any tanks coming after him. "Come on, friends." He clicked to the animals. He climbed back up on the rhinosaur's back. The leopard came running up with her cubs. The arrow bird and the monkey, taking no chances, followed behind them, leaped to its usual perch on top of Johnny's head. "Let's go," Johnny clicked to the rhinosaur. "Walk very slowly out toward the big black place." Johnny clicked to one of the cubs to jump up on the rhinosaur's back beside him. Johnny crawled to the broad head of the rhinosaur between two of its horns. The leopard cub sat on its haunches beside him. The mother leopard and the other cub ran alongside them. The rhinosaur's hooves made muffled thunder as he walked. A big grin on his face and waving his hand, Johnny emerged from the jungle into full sight of his father, Jeb, and many others inside the guard tower. "Stop when we get a little way from the door," Johnny said to the rhinosaur. The big beast grunted its understanding. Johnny and his friends came to a halt close enough to the tower so that Johnny's voice could be heard. "Open the gate, please," Johnny shouted. "We want to come inside." He saw his father's startled face above him. "Hello, Dad. How's Mom? Did she worry too much?" "Hello, son." The father's voice was shocked. "Your mother is all right." He paused. How did you... "You mean the animals?" Johnny asked, rather enjoying the effect he was making. "Oh, they're friends of mine. You can let us in. They won't hurt anybody. I'm bringing a present to pay for Baba and make up for all the harm we did. Look." He took a packet of the claws and opened it. He let a handful of the claws run out of one hand into the other in a shining blue waterfall. Through the microphone he could hear his father and the other men gasp. "Come in here, quick!" Frederick Watson's voice came back over the loudspeaker. "Open the gates, please," Johnny repeated. "But the rhinosaur and the leopard—" "They're friends of mine. They brought me here. They won't hurt anybody, I promise." The big steel gate slowly opened. Riding on the back of one of the great feared rhinosaurs, Johnny entered the colony. It seemed that everyone in the colony had heard of Johnny's strange return. Pioneers, men, women, and children, hunters and guards were hurrying toward the big gate. At the sight of the rhinosaur, a woman screamed and the crowd ran, scattering in all directions. Captain Thompson, two other colonists, and a hunter held their ground, their ato pistols out. "Don't shoot! Don't shoot!" Johnny shouted. Beneath him the rhinosaur trembled. "He won't hurt you. He's our friend." He stroked the animal bird on his shoulder. "Look, even an arrow bird." Slowly the ato tube pistols that had been leveled at them were lowered. Hesitantly, one or two of the people began to move back toward the little group. A woman came running toward Johnny. It was his mother. Tears were running down her face. Even she was finally stopped by the bewildering sight of her son surrounded by jungle animals. "Let me down," Johnny clicked to the rhinosaur. The big animal lowered his head. A cry went up from the people as the leopardess bounded after him. Johnny threw his arms around his mother. "Oh, Johnny, Johnny," his mother said over and over. holding him tight against her armor. She stiffened as the mother leopard rubbed against them, and the arrow bird lit for a moment on her shoulder. "Mother, I want you to meet my friends," Johnny said. "This is Mona, the leopardess, and her two cubs, Pat and Mike. And this is Skimpy, the monkey. I haven't named my arrow bird yet." Then he spoke to the animals. "This is my mother." Johnny's mother stood there a moment, too bewildered to speak. The leopardess licked her hand. Then Johnny led his mother to the rhinosaur. "This is my friend Skorkin, the rhinosaur. He gave me a ride all the way here. Isn't he beautiful?" Then he clicked to the rhinosaur. "This is my mother." The huge creature grunted. Skorkin said, "Hello," Johnny said. Her eyes wide with the strangeness of it all, Johnny's mother nodded a wordless greeting to the creature. Just then Johnny heard a sound he had been waiting for. It was the sound of a basketball dropped from a height. He looked up to see Baba bounding along as fast as he could come. Johnny was off at a dead run to meet him, leaving his mother and the other animals behind. The two of them met at top speed, and they met with such impact that both were tumbled to the ground in a heap of arms, legs, boy, and bear. Both of them were laughing when they got to their feet. "Oh, Baba, you bad little bear," Johnny said. "I thought I'd never see you again." "And I," Baba said. "You shouldn't have come back here," Johnny said. "I'll have to punish you right now." He grabbed Baba suddenly by the leg, whirled him around and around his head, and threw him as high as he could in the air. Throwing his arms around as if frightened to death, the little bear whimpered and clicked, but just before he hit the ground he made himself into a ball and bounced higher than Johnny had thrown him. Then on the third bounce he landed lightly on Johnny's shoulder. Their delight was cut short by the sight of a fat, bald man who glittered as he walked toward the crowd. For an instant Johnny was afraid. It was Trader Harkness. Then he remembered. The trader's days of power were over. "Mr. Harkness," he called, "I've got something to show you." "They said you had claws." The trader's little black eyes fixed their gaze on Johnny. "Come on, I'll show everybody." The crowd parted for Johnny and Baba and the trader. By this time, almost all the colonists and visiting hunters were gathered around the rhinosaur and the leopards. A few bold souls were timidly petting the cubs. Probably of most interest was the arrow bird. Tired from all its riding, it had put its head under its wing and gone fast asleep, perched on the rhinosaur's horn. Johnny took the bag he had made from the shirt down from where it hung beside the arrow bird. He untied it, revealing the many packets made from woven rushes. Packet after packet, he spilled the claws out onto the shirt until there was a great pile of jewels glowing before the people. "Where did you get them?" Trader Harkness' voice rumbled. He was shocked and pale. "The marva themselves gave them to me for the colony," Johnny replied. "It's a sign that they and all the animals want to be our friends." The trader forced his eyes away from the pile of jewels and looked over his shoulder. Johnny was suddenly conscious of three hunters standing behind the trader. Ed and his gang. "I'll take those claws now," the trader said. The gang whipped out their ato tubes and leveled them at Johnny and Baba. The crowd gasped and then fell silent. Johnny's father stepped up, but one of the hunters waved him back with his gun. Johnny saw he'd been wrong. There was plenty of fight left in the trader. He glanced around him. The animals had become very still, waiting his word. "Friends," Johnny clicked, "stay still. This man is a killer." Skorkin, the dinosaur, snorted. The arrow bird awoke and snapped his head into arrow position. The monkey bared its teeth, while Mona, the leopardess, crouched to spring, the muscles of her haunches trembling. Johnny saw the trader's eyes widen. The leopard was not 3 feet away from him. Thinking fast, Johnny stepped carefully over and put a hand on the leopard's shoulder. "I wouldn't move, Mr. Harkness," Johnny said, his voice quavering in spite of himself. "If you don't tell your gang to give their guns to Captain Thompson, I'll tell the animals to charge. Maybe Ed told you what I made the monkey do." Johnny's heart raced. It was a bluff. He couldn't tell the animals to charge. He knew they might be killed. No amount of claws would be worth that. The trader's eyes were fixed on Mona. Then Skorkin snorted again, eager to fight. The trader turned brick red. "Do what the kid says," he said in a low, strangled voice. The ato tube in Ed's hand wavered and then came down. There was a deep sigh of relief from the crowd. Grimly and quietly, Captain Thompson gathered up the guns. "All right, you men," he said. "There's a room ready for you at the stockade." The fight was really gone from the trader now. His shoulders slumped, his head down. He shuffled as he was led away. Johnny's father stepped forward and embraced him. "I don't understand how you did it, Johnny," he said. "I don't understand anything about it, but this is certainly a wonderful day." End of chapter 16. Chapter 17 of Venus Boy. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Shasta, Oakland, California. Venus Boy by Lee Sutton. Chapter 17. Teachers Can't Play Hooky. It was now an hour after the Earth rocket had blasted off on its way back to Earth. Johnny Watson lay on his stomach with his chin cupped in his hands and looked down from the top of New Plymouth Rock. Beside him, twisted into the same position, was his friend, Baba, his blue nails glowing in Venus' pearly light. Near the two friends, perched on a boulder, were two of the large Venus eagles, watching every move they made. How changed it all was down in the settlement. People were streaming back from the rocket field on foot and without armor. Beside the Jenkins family strode Mona, the leopardess, carrying a basket in her mouth. In the basket, the Jenkins baby slept. Mona just loved babies. Down in the marshberry fields, 3 rhinosaurs peacefully browsed. There were so many berries available now in the sea marshes that no one had to worry about the few in the fields. The marva had left these 3 rhinosaurs to carry people wherever they might want to go. High in the sky was a faint dot. Baba nudged Johnny and pointed. "Here comes Keetack," he said in his clicking language. "We'll have to go down pretty soon." "I suppose so," Johnny said wearily. It had been fun for a while, being the only person who understood the marva language. When Dad and the other colonists had gone into the jungle to talk with the council of all the marva groves, Johnny and Baba had been there too, the center of attention. When the men spoke, Baba told the marva what they meant. When the marva spoke, Johnny had to tell the men what the bears meant. It had been fun being so important. It had been fun being treated like heroes, but they were already tired of it. With their new freedom to travel, there was a whole continent to explore and hundreds of new friends to make. Idly, Johnny watched the dot that Baba said was Keetack growing into a bird with a 20-foot wingspread flying through the sky. In its claws was a small black-muzzled bouncing bear. Baba's eyes were magically good. The bird was a Venus eagle, the marva's airplane. Before men had come and made it dangerous for them, the marva had flown anywhere they wanted to go in the talons of these great birds. Johnny knew that the earliest hunters thought the eagles were preying upon the bears. It was just one more surprising thing about the little bears. Johnny remembered what Rick had said when he had arrived home, his wound all healed. He had really grown to respect the marva. They have learned to live with other creatures and have taught all their friends, as they call the animals, to live in peace together. The meat eaters have their meat trees so they don't need to attack other animals. It's amazing, Rick reported. Johnny remembered how Baba had preened himself when Rick had spoken that way, and he smiled. "Hey, Baba," Johnny said, "how soon do you think we could take a trip all around the groves? We could get Skorkin to carry us and go visit everybody." "You will have to come stay with my people," Baba said. Only a few days before, Baba had discovered a host of aunts, uncles, and cousins in one of the outlying groves. Most important of all, he had found his father. "I've lived with you for years and years. Now it should be your turn." "Oh, good," said Johnny. "We'll do it soon as they'll let us go." "Look, Johnny," Baba pointed. "Look at the trader." Below, the fat, bald-headed little man, a pack on his back, was heading into the jungle. He waddled as he walked, but he moved straight along. "Where's he going?" Baba asked. "Dad says he's going to start a marshberry farm, if the marva will let him. But gosh, it'll be a long time before anyone will help him." "He can always live on meat fruit and stuff," Baba said. "Nobody likes him, but They won't bother him if he leaves them alone." What had happened to the trader and to the outlaws was the strangest thing of all. The marva had not wanted them punished. They said they wanted to make friends, not enemies. The thousands of marva claws that had been given to the colony had made the claws quite cheap, so that Trader Harkness had become a poor man. He had been rich in hunting equipment and hunting lodges. Now all these things were valueless. Surprisingly, he had refused to return to Earth. "Venus is my home," he had said flatly. "I'll get by." Johnny had to admire his courage, just as he had to admire some of the hunters who would not stay on Venus. These lean, hard-bitten men were going further on into space. To Johnny's surprise, Keetack admired the hunters too. "They are fighters, like the rhinosaurs. Here there is nothing left to fight. They are people of much courage." Looking down on the trader, Johnny found he couldn't help feeling sorry for him. "Goodbye," he yelled, his voice echoing among the rocks. "Goodbye, trader." The fat man looked up and waved back. Johnny thought he smiled. "He was a real pioneer," Johnny said. "Yes," Baba answered. "He'll be all right." Johnny jumped back suddenly from the edge of the rock and hid behind some bushes. "Here comes Mom looking for us." Baba quickly dived back out of sight too. Johnny peeked through the screening of bushes. His mother was riding toward the rock on Skorkin, the rhinosaur. This hideout was not very secret. Everybody on Venus knew about it. He stood up and waved down to her. "I'm coming, Mother," he shouted. His mother nodded, and the big rhinosaur turned back toward the settlement. In a few minutes Baba and Johnny would be back in school, sitting in front of a group of men and a group of marva. Baba would be teaching the marva how to understand the talk of people, while Johnny taught the men and women how to talk and understand the language of the marva. It was a hard job. "I guess we gotta go back," Johnny mourned. "I guess so," Baba agreed sadly. "There is only one trouble with being a teacher," said Johnny. "Teachers just can't play hooky." Then he grinned. "Say, I've got an idea." "What?" asked Baba. "Mom hasn't been doing her homework. Let's give a test today." Baba slapped his furry haunches, his blue teeth glowing. "Let's go," Johnny clicked to the two eagles. He ran as hard as he could and leaped off the edge of the high cliff, hurtling down and down. Right after him, Baba jumped too. There was the sound of great wings, and the two tremendous Venus eagles swept after them. One dived at Johnny, its claws spread. The long, powerful claws hooked into Johnny's belt and whisked him through the air toward the settlement. The other grasped Baba by the shoulders. Together, the two friends flew on. "That was fun," said Johnny. His furry blue pal nodded his agreement. End of chapter 17. Facts About Venus of Venus Boy. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Shasta, Oakland, California. Venus Boy by Lee Sutton. Facts about Venus. An afterword for curious boys and girls, as well as parents, teachers, and librarians. Daddy, is this what Venus is really like? Demanded Blake, my 11-year-old son. He had just finished reading my manuscript. I have an idea that among my readers there may be other curious boys and girls who might ask the same question my son did. This was my answer. The job of a science fiction writer, I think, is to spin out tales about other times and strange planets, using known facts as beginning points and without violating any known facts. In Venus Boy, I have tried to do this. I think I have created a picture of life on the surface of Venus that is possible, if just barely possible. In addition to being a storyteller, I am a librarian, and librarians love to keep their facts straight. The fact about Venus is that nobody knows just what it is like on the surface of the planet. Since nobody knows, I could make it all up. Many facts are known about Venus, however. Venus is the sun's second planet. It is about 25 million miles closer to the sun than our Earth. Astronomers have measured and weighed it. It is almost exactly the same size as Earth, but its weight, mass, is 20% less. It turns very slowly on its axis so that its day is much longer than an Earth day. Because of a layer of clouds that surrounds it, the surface cannot be seen even with the most powerful of telescopes. Thus, astronomers cannot tell just how fast or slow it turns. A Venus day may be as short as 14 Earth days, or as long as 225 Earth days. If you noticed, you can see I have kept my picture of life on Venus true to these facts. I had the Venus day be 14 Earth days long. Some of the animals and plants were a great deal larger than Earth animals and plants, a fact that would be expected on a planet with less gravity than that of Earth. Of course, you might think that because of the clouds that surround Venus, the planet would be a terribly rainy place. That is not very probable. By using an instrument called a spectrograph, astronomers have learned that those heavy clouds are not of water vapor. Indeed, they can find evidence for little or no water vapor on Venus. They can detect a great deal of carbon dioxide, but no oxygen. But without oxygen, animals couldn't breathe. I can hear a child who knows some science say, life would be impossible. That could be true. Some scientists, in fact, most of them, believe that life is impossible on the surface of Venus. But remember, nobody knows what is under that heavy layer of clouds, and nobody knows just what those clouds are. One astronomer, Rupert Wilt, has advanced a theory about Venusian clouds that I think would allow for the possibility of life on Venus. He theorized on the evidence available to him that when Venus was young, carbon dioxide and water in the presence of ultraviolet light may have combined to make clouds of one form of plastic. I think it possible that such clouds would be thick, spongy, and permanent, and that they would join together so that the inner atmosphere of Venus could not escape through them. According to his theory, Venus could be like a Christmas present, all wrapped in shining plastic. This could account for the fact, too, that more than half the light falling on it from the sun is reflected, making it the brightest of all the planets or stars, a jewel of a planet. Under a loose layer of plastic, life could be possible on Venus. If plant life began under those clouds, then an oxygen atmosphere could develop. Plants take in carbon dioxide through their leaves and give out oxygen. Many scientists believe the Earth's atmosphere became rich with oxygen in this manner. Of course, none of that oxygen in Venus' atmosphere could get through the thick layer of spongy plastic clouds. The carbon dioxide that was trapped on the outside would not get through either. Scientists believe, too, that Venus may be too hot for life or too cold. I think that the clouds and the carbon dioxide trapped outside of them would serve, on the one hand, to insulate Venus from the hot light of the nearby sun, and, on the other hand, to hold in its warmth during the long nights. As you can see, I have spun my story out of Mr. Wilt's idea of the plastic clouds of Venus, the rhinosaur's heavy armor, the arrowbird's bills, the marva's plastic strengthening jewel claws, all had their beginnings in the idea of a plastic planet. It allowed for the creation of some fairly interesting animals, I think. While I am on the subject of my animals, I should say a word about the possibility of animals cooperating the way I have had my Venus animals cooperate. That, I think, is perfectly possible. On Earth, one can find examples of several creatures living so closely together that if one kind is killed off, the others would all die. In many articles and books, Mr. Ashley Montague has amassed much evidence that shows an instinct for cooperation is as primary as the instinct of self-preservation. If we grant the idea of a creature whose intelligence is directed entirely toward surviving by cooperation, then I think my cooperative animals are, at the very least, possible. Possible. That is what I hope my picture of life on Venus is. However, it must be remembered that it is only just possible. Astronomers have envisioned Venus as a planet of terrible dust storms, with a temperature hot enough to boil water. They have spoken of it as a place of seas of formaldehyde, hot and terrible by day and freezing cold at night. Their guesses are probably better than mine, but I must admit I like my guess a little better. I hope you have enjoyed it. End of Facts About Venus. End of Venus Boy by Lee Sutton.
Hi. So, that was pretty good. I actually like that. It's nice to get, I have to mute myself. There we go. Okay. There we go. Um, so yeah, that was pretty good. I suggest definitely, definitely listening to it from the beginning if you haven't. And yeah, if anybody's here, I hope you have an absolutely wonderful day, and I hope you enjoyed it. And feel free to request a book at any time from LibriVox.org. Links in the description, and it should be up in the chat as well. Um, and yeah, that's it. Have a great one. Next time, I'm not sure what I'll play. I'll have a look through, maybe a classic fairy tale or something. Okay, have a great day and a great weekend, and happy Thanksgiving. And yeah, that's about it. Like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And we'll talk to you later. Bye. Oops. Oops. There we go. Okay. Bye.